So with that, we'll begin this evening's class. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 17, Three Kinds of Faith. Arjuna. There are men who sacrifice to God with faith in their hearts, although they do not follow the instructions of the scriptures. What is the nature of their faith? Does it belong to sattva or rajas or to tamas? Sri Krishna. Faith among human beings is of three kinds. It is characterized by sattva or by rajas or by tamas according to a man's dominant tendencies. Now listen, the faith of each individual corresponds to his temperament. A man consists of the faith that is in him. Whatever his faith is, he is. Men whose temperament is dominated by sattva worship God in his various aspects. People whose temperament is dominated by sattva worship God in his various aspects. People of rajas worship power and wealth. As for the rest, the people of tamas, they worship the spirits of the dead and make gods of the ghosts of their ancestors. Now that doesn't mean this worshiping the spirits of the dead and making gods of their ancestors. That doesn't mean celebrating your dead loved ones, as the people of Mexico do with the Dia de los Muertos, the Day of the Dead, where they invite the spirits of the dead to join them on this particular day. It is said to be auspicious for that to happen, and they entertain them. They give them their favorite food, they play them their favorite music, they dance them their favorite dances, with the understanding that the spirits of the dead are enjoying this with them. This is not what Sri Krishna is talking about. He's talking about those who actually make divinities of their dead ones, their dead ancestors, and seek things from them. You may know these people to be of demonic nature, who mortify the body excessively in ways not prescribed by the scriptures. They do this because their lust and attachments to sense object has filled them with egoism and vanity. In their foolishness, they weaken all their sense organs and outrage me, the dweller within the body. So this is why Krishna, if you remember earlier in the Gita, says, walk the middle way, moderation, no excessive fasting, no sleep deprivation, no torment of the body. As he said, that's just things of egoism and vanity. And in their foolishness, these people weaken their sense organs, which are, of course, the instruments of the Atman. And so, when you weaken the sense organs, they outrage me, that which appears in us as the Atman, the dweller within the body. The food which is agreeable to different men is also of three sorts. So too are the kinds of sacrifice, austerity, and almsgiving. Listen, this is how they may be distinguished. Men of sattva like foods which increase their vital force, energy, strength, and health. Such foods add to the pleasure of physical and mental life. These foods are juicy, soothing, fresh, and agreeable. Those people of rajas prefer foods which are violently bitter, sour, salty, hot, pungent, acid, and burning. And we all know people who like foods like that. People of rajas prefer foods which are violently bitter, sour, salty, hot, pungent, acid, and burning. These cause ill health and distemper of the mind and body. And those of tamas take a perverse pleasure in foods which are stale, tasteless, rotten, and impure. They like to eat the leavings of others. Ugh. When men offer sacrifice in accordance with scriptural instructions and do not desire any advantage for themselves, they are inspired by sattva. So the key to this sentence is do not desire any advantage for themselves. If you sacrifice, but you're not looking for an edge, you're not being calculated about it, you sacrifice in accordance with the scriptural instructions, which Sri Krishna recapitulates in chapters 3 through 6. So those who offer sacrifice in accordance with scriptural instructions and do not desire any advantage for themselves, they are inspired by sattva. Their hearts are set upon the sacrifice for its own sake, which is in the same spirit as love for its own sake. Love for its own sake, sacrifice for its own sake. You offer something to the beloved for the sake of love, not because I'll get something back. And an inner sense of duty impels them. But you may be sure that the performance of sacrifice for outward show and in the hope of divine reward is inspired by rajas, particularly those people who want a better place in Swarga, heaven, and then want a better birth in their next lifetime where they have more wealth and power. And there's lots of sacrifice that is performed in this spirit by people. They may not even know it themselves in any conscious way, but if you watch them as they're doing it, you can see that their movements and their way of speaking betray them. You may be sure that the performance of sacrifice for outward show, that's what I mean, you can tell by their actions and the way they talk, outward show, and in the hope of divine reward, is inspired by rajas. Now that doesn't mean they won't get their reward. But as Jesus said, yea and verily, you have your reward. There won't be anything higher for you. You have your reward. When the givers of the sacrifice are inspired by tamas, they disregard the scriptural instructions. There is no food offering, no prayer of dedication, no gift to the chief priest, and no faith at all. Reverence for the devas, the seers, the teachers, and the sages, straightforwardness, harmlessness, physical cleanliness, and sexual purity, these are the virtues whose practice is called austerity of the body. To speak without ever causing pain to another, to be truthful, to say always what is kind and beneficial, and to study the scriptures regularly, this practice is called austerity of speech. The practice of serenity, sympathy, meditation upon the Atman, withdrawal of the mind from sense objects, and integrity of motive is called austerity of the mind. And there's a lovely summary of this by Patanjali in the Niyamas. The Niyamas, as taught by Patanjali, are a wonderful summary of what Sri Krishna just said, the actual workbook, how to go about it. And in Swami Prabhavananda's translation and commentary of the Yoga Sutra of Patanjali, you find some wonderful commentary on the yamas, the restraints, and the niyamas, the observances. When people practice this threefold austerity devotedly, with enlightened faith and no desire to be rewarded, and no desire for reward, it is said to have the nature of sattva. Austerity which is practiced out of selfish pride, or to gain notoriety, honor, and worship, is said to have the nature of rajas. Its effect is not lasting because it lacks resolution. Now, this has a deep meaning. Its effect in this life is not lasting, but also it won't gain you long in heaven. The merits are quickly exhausted. And so then you will be reborn, because your desires are in no way fulfilled or satisfied. So you may gain a more powerful, more wealthy family birth, but that too won't last. As Sri Ramakrishna pointed out, a human life is of only 2 days' duration. By that he meant to emphasize how short our life actually is. Particularly here at the end of the Kali Yuga, it's actually shortening, we're finding. Austerity is said to have the nature of tamas when it is practiced for some foolish purpose, or for the excitement of self-torture, or in order to harm another person. We really don't need to discuss that. A gift may be regarded as proceeding from sattva when it is given to a deserving person at a suitable time and in a fit place, not because of past benefits or the hope of future reward, but simply because the giver knows that it is right for him to give. And again, we all know people who give in that spirit, and we know people who receive in that spirit. It's freely given, nothing is riding on it in either direction. It's just a gift of love and benediction. Whatever is given in the hope of a like return, or with any other selfish motive, or reluctantly, may be known to proceed from rajas. And one of the keys in this sentence is the reluctantly. people who have pledged some money, and they may eventually honor their pledge, but oftentimes they take a long time to do it. So that is proceeds from rajas. From tamas comes the gift which is given to an unworthy person at the wrong time and in the wrong place, disdainfully, without regard for the feelings of him who receives it. Again, not much to discuss there. We know so such things. Om Tat Sat. Om Tat Sat. These three words designate Brahman, by whom the seers, the Vedas, and the sacrificial rites were created in ancient times. Therefore, Om is always uttered by the devotees of Brahman, as the scriptures direct, before undertaking any act of sacrifice, almsgiving, or austerity. Tat, meaning the absolute, that, capital T, that. Tat, meaning the absolute, is uttered by seekers after liberation, who desire no reward for their deed when they are about to make a sacrifice or give alms or practice some austerity. Sat means goodness and existence. We often hear it translated as truth or the real. Here we get a deeper understanding of the word. Sat means goodness and existence, as in Satchidananda. It also means an auspicious act. All perseverance in sacrifice, austerity, or almsgiving is sat. All actions dedicated to Brahman are sat. If a person performs any act of sacrifice or gives any gift or practices any austerity without directing his faith and will toward Brahman, then what he does is asat, unreal, not lasting, without great effect. It cannot produce any good. It cannot produce any good result, either in this world or the next. Now that was, again, these chapters at the end of the Gita tend to be short. So that only took us about 20 minutes to read. Before we go on, we may actually finish this evening, although I think not. But are there any comments or questions about what we read in chapter 17? About the definitions and consequences of those definitions that Sri Krishna gave to Arjuna. Anything at all?
So, Brother Shankara?
Yes, Swayamji.
What does the word sacrifice refer to? Is it the ritualistic practices?
It means that, yes. But it also means anything that you offer. This is very carefully spelled out in chapter 3 by Krishna. And he says, offer everything to me as a sacrifice. So if you, before you take food, if you offer it to the divine presence, which of course they then share with the devas, that is sacrifice. If you forbear saying something to someone who might deserve it in an absolute sense, Someone does something, says something, and you forbear in the knowledge that it won't do any good whatsoever for you to. It isn't that this isn't about being a doormat or not being a doormat. This is about those situations in which you forbear speaking or acting because you know perfectly well that there is nothing to be gained by it. In your wisdom, you know that. That is a sacrifice. Anytime that you give money or any other thing that you can give in this selfless way, without desire for reward, but only desire to do good and be good, that is a sacrifice. So yes, it means the ritualistic sacrifice, of which if you go to the temple down in South Atlanta, you can see this going on all the time, these ritualistic sacrifices. And if you're there, you may be offered some of the prasad of that sacrifice. Sometimes it is done simply for worship. Sometimes it is done to produce a particular result, particularly those services that where someone pays to help to the priest to and this isn't limited to the culture of India. It also exists in Catholicism. When my late wife passed away, her cousin, to whom she was very dear, paid for a mass to be done for my late wife, to assure that the purpose of this was to assure that her stay in purgatory would be short, that the purification of purgatory would be quick and so to speak painless. So there are many, many different kinds of sacrifices. It is the ones that you do selflessly, without hope of gain, that are part of Om Tat Sat. Is that clear? Anything more?
That explains it nicely. Thank you, Brother Shankara.
Any follow-up?
No.
Okay. Anything else from anyone?
Yes, Brother Shankara.
Yes, Aaron.
Talking about, well, when Krishna talks about, I don't remember the specific verse, but talking about being born into a life of wealth, like I enjoy how he talks about the middle way, because I often contemplate if I were born into a life of extreme wealth and privilege, in a way that would be a curse, because I would never probably spend any time thinking of the divine.
No, you would be thinking about how to protect your position and your wealth. That's what they teach you in finishing in prep school, basically. I mean, it isn't an overt course that they teach you. It's just simply the zeitgeist of prep school. I've spoken to people who've been to prep school and survived. The whole attitude is we are special. We have to maintain our specialness, and we have to be very careful of anyone who might try to intrude on or take from us our privilege and our specialness and our wealth. So yes, be glad you were not born to wealth and privilege. Well said, Aaron. Good. Anything else from anyone?
Yeah, on the other extreme, it seems that people of extreme wealth or extreme poverty can't seem to think of God. That's also true, I think.
Well, yes, you're absolutely right, Brahmadas. No religion on an empty stomach. This is why Swami Vivekananda came up with this formula, which can be abbreviated as first bread, that is, learning how to sustain yourself and not have an empty stomach and not suffer the privations and constant worry and anxiety of being poor. Then football, and what a wonderful metaphor football is for the game of life. So first you learn how to take care of yourself and maintain yourself. Then you learn how to play the game of life in such a way that you are an equal participant. Not that you are master of all human beings, no, but that you are a good player on the field of life's play. Soccer, football, properly called, is a wonderful metaphor for the game of life, which is why Swami Vivekananda used that metaphor. First bread, then football, then the Gita. And all of this is wonderfully discussed in Swami Ranganathananda's book, Divine Grace. He doesn't specifically mention Swami Vivekananda's formula, but he addresses each point in it very clearly. And so he says first that we must have a balanced and healthy personality and ego. And then with that in hand, we can make our living successfully. And then we can go on and be a master of the game of life. And then he says, when you are truly a master of the game of life and you are fulfilled and you have a mature, successful personality, Krishna taps you on the shoulder and says, oh, and by the way, there's something more than the Gita. This is all in Swami Ranganathananda's wonderful book, Divine Grace, which it's something that deserves to be read once a year, I think, by all of us.
And you had mentioned another book earlier by Swami Prabhavananda. Was that How to Know God? Was that
Yes, it is. It's his translation and translation and commentary on the Yoga Sutra of Patanjali.
Yeah, I'd like to take a look at that. Do you have that in your library by any chance?
We have it in the library here. We also have it in the bookshop for sale.
All right, you'll be seeing me soon.
Okay, good. Well, I love that. By the way, Jerry and Lori came by here today for a conversation. We sat outside, and it was very nice to have some time with them. Very sweet. So any of you who would like to come by and spend some time, that would be most welcome. Oh, and our new yard man came for the first time today. As far as I can tell, did an excellent job. Anybody else?
You said we're at the end of the age of Kali Yuga, correct?
Well, that's what Sri Ramakrishna said.
Okay.
That's what Holy Mother said. That that the Master's advent was the sign that the Kali Yuga is ending. Now, that doesn't mean tomorrow. It means it's ending. Swami Vivekananda gave us a hint about how long it might take for the transition from one age to the next, from the Iron Age to the Golden Age. He said, I've given them enough, speaking of his teachings, I've given them enough for 1,500 years. I've never heard it said by any of the swamis. This is just a surmise of my own, that what he meant was that there would be the dwindling away of the Kali Yuga and the dawn to full sunshine of the golden age would be a period of 1,500 years. So, I mean, it was not so very long after the master left the body that Vivekananda left the body. 1886, 1902, 16 years. Shall we read on into chapter 18? We have about 25 minutes left. So the Gita ends with Sri Krishna speaking on renunciation, the yoga, the union, the yoga attained by what is the other meaning of yoga, which is detachment or renunciation. So chapter 18, the yoga of renunciation. Arjuna, I want to learn the truth about renunciation and non-attachment. What is the difference between these two principles, between renunciation and non-attachment? Sri Krishna, the sages tell us that renunciation means the complete giving up of all actions which are motivated by desire. I'm going to read that again. This is, just imagine this. As Holy Mother said to a devotee one time, when the devotee said, Mother, you gave me the mantra, I've been practicing, and yet I haven't attained liberation. And Mother said, oh, it's quite easy, dear. It could happen in a moment. All you have to do is stop wanting anything. Even liberation. That's the conundrum. You have to simply stop wanting anything. That's what Mother told this devotee. It's very simple, dear. It can happen in a moment. All you have to do is stop wanting anything. And this is what Krishna is pointing to about the word renunciation. The sages tell us that renunciation means the complete giving up of all actions which are motivated by desire. And they say that non-attachment means abandonment of the fruits of action. So you just cooked a wonderful dinner. You spent all day, first shopping, then preparing, then cooking, and this wonderful dinner has come to fruition, and lo and behold, your house burns down. Are you able to not mourn for the house and for all the effort you put into that wonderful meal that was all ready just before the house burned down? How hard this is. The sages say that non-attachment means the abandonment of the fruits of action. You just paid $5,000 for some stock the stock goes up, the stock is appreciating nicely, and suddenly the company goes bankrupt. Files for reorganization. How do you feel? What would be your action? What would be your reaction? The sages tell us that renunciation means the complete giving up of all actions which are motivated by desire. And they say that non-attachment means abandonment of the fruits of action. I think that would be a good place for us to stop and make sure that everyone feels satisfied. They're clear about what we mean, what we're talking about the difference between and the definitions of renunciation and non-attachment.
I feel like those who can work without the being attached to the fruits are like the perfect example of a karma yogi.
When you say, Aaron, not being attached to the fruits of their work, can you give us an example? I'll give you one.
Okay. I guess
Willie Nelson, on more than one occasion, for farm aid, for some political candidates and so on, has written a song. And instead of claiming that song for his own and copywriting it and taking the income from it, he signs it over completely to the cause for which he wrote it. And because I've read a little bit about Willie Nelson and know just a little bit about him, I think if you asked him, that song you wrote in 1985, Willie, for Farm Aid, what can you tell us about that song? He'd say, oh, I really can't remember anything about it. I just wrote it for him and gave it to him, and I didn't think about it anymore. And the next Farm Aid came along, and I wrote another one. I don't remember that one either. This is true of Willie Nelson. And it isn't because he's forgetful. He just writes so many songs, and some of them he just gives away and never gives them another thought. So there's an example of what you're talking about here.
An example that comes to my mind is when Benjamin Franklin invented the lightning rod. He had the ability to patent it and keep all the money for himself, but he gave it as a gift to the world, and anybody could make them.
That's Benjamin Franklin. That's good. That's a great one, Brahmadas.
And on the subject of talking about inventing and creating, I find that is that not what sattva is? Like pure intention, so to speak.
Yes, a pure intention would be sattvic, yes. A pure intention, that is to say, there's nothing attached to it, nothing that you're desiring from it. That would be a pure intention.
Brother Shankara?
Yes, dear.
To me, it seems like with a lot of spiritual practice, one can, aim and get to non-attachment to at least some extent.
Uh-huh.
Giving up all actions which are motivated by desire seems to be more difficult to achieve. Off the top of my head, I'm thinking one example is, suppose we go to the doctor, we are in pain and we want something to relieve the pain. That's desired to be free of pain. So
Yes.
does that negate the renunciation principle if we do that? Or where does that end? I mean, anything we do to sustain life is sort of desire.
There is no harm in living life. By this, I mean no karmic harm in living life, enjoying life, doing things which maintain life. We're given this action and experience suit, this world machine. We're given this. This is what Sri Krishna means by the middle path. Those who become knowers of Brahman, they now lack nothing. Does that mean they don't eat? Of course they eat. They probably don't eat much. They probably don't go to a lot of trouble to prepare food that is especially delicious. But they eat. So this is why Swayam, the spiritual path, is called the razor's edge. We have to walk very carefully, putting one foot very carefully in front of the other to tread this path. And we're always going to fall off to one side or the other. But what we find is that the more we do our spiritual practice, that the fall is not very far. We find ourselves having done something self-centered. We find ourselves having been self-protective. We find ourselves having said a word to someone else in an incautious or careless moment, that the moment we say it, we know, oh, that's going to hurt them. As Swami Swahananda said, and he repeated this over and over and over, what's done is done. If it's something that you wish not to do again, vow not to repeat it and go forward. So too much thinking about our actions, particularly about the actions of the past. Or thinking about the potential of our action in the present. Takes us out of the moment in which that action is appropriate. And so we find ourselves having missed the moment, as the actors say. You know, the play is flowing along and someone doesn't remember their line or gets it wrong or something. And in the theater they say, oh, they missed the moment. And of course, it is extremely difficult. But there's no reason to concern ourselves too much about what we've just done. And there's every reason for us to do our spiritual practices relatively continuously so that we are appropriate in the moment. But it takes a long time to become that expert dancer that doesn't put a foot wrong. Our intentions are the seeds of our actions. If your intentions are clean, then your actions will be pure. Did all that make sense?
Yes, Brother Shankar, absolutely. Thank you.
Well, how about anybody else? Any follow-up to that? Did all of that make sense to you as well? I mean, this is difficult stuff. This is not, we're at the end of the Gita. We're talking about, you know, that which frees us. Renunciation and non-attachment. Anybody else?
It's a lot of hard work.
Yes, Michele, it is a lot of hard work. But it is the most rewarding work we can do. Why? Because slowly and slowly it frees us from that which causes us misery and suffering. Slowly and slowly things get better. And your aspirations become higher and higher.
Don't you feel that as you continue to work on it and on yourself, that there's less drama in you? You create less drama, and you pulled into
yes,
drama.
Yes, absolutely.
But it seems like there's less drama in your life, but other people will pull you into their drama.
They'll do the best they can, yes.
Yeah.
Well, drama is a way of distracting ourselves. It isn't like it's bad and wrong, like, oh, that person's a drama queen, we're going to judge them. No. They want to be distracted. We all want to be distracted. We just have to choose the higher distraction. As you said, not the drama. Leave the drama behind. again, Patanjali says, how do we proceed? How do we become more centered? He said, replace the lower samskaras with higher samskaras. When you encounter the lower samskara, you just mentioned drama, when you encounter that, replace it with a higher samskara. What is it that promotes serenity and peace rather than this distracting drama? And of course, something from the scriptures, some beautiful poems, some music. As Vivekananda said, music is the highest form of art. And for those who understand it, the highest form of worship. So music is always a good one. Sing a song, listen to some music. Music is good. But replace the lower samskara with the higher samskara. And as you said, it's a lot of work. And it is everyday work. Ultimately, it becomes every moment work. This is what Adi Shankaracharya says at the end of the Vivekachudamani. He says, toward the end, after you've had the lower samadhi and you're heading toward the higher samadhi, which is not something you can do. You can't create that higher samadhi, but you can create the circumstances in which it is more likely by being mindful every moment. Every moment is a choice.
Isn't it helpful too to say not this, not that?
Yes, but not in a rejection sense, not in a suppression sense, in a wisdom sense. I know this or that will not lead me where I want to go. It'll either at best, it'll keep me on a level plane. I'll march in place, so to speak. I'll spin the hamster wheel, no progress. So when we say not this, not that, we're saying, I know this is not going to take me where I want to go. This is another form of distraction.
Well,
And it's especially important that we not suppress our emotions, that we learn to recognize, and because this is what so many people do. They suppress their emotions. They say, oh no, not that. Instead of looking at what it is that's arisen as an emotion and seeing what's there. Swami Prabhavananda told us over and over, he mentioned in any number of times I can remember, there is no further progress in spiritual life until the heart center opens, until there is an opening of the heart center, which is why you do the spiritual practices to draw the kundalini up to the heart center. And when you do, you find that there's all kinds of emotions associated with being heartfelt. And so we don't reject those emotions. We don't say, oh, not this in that rejection sense. But will this emotion lead me higher? Or will this emotion lead me forward or lower? Yes, dear.
Locked up the shrine.
Okay, someone just told me that they closed and locked up the shrine for the night. Thank you to that person. So not this, not that, is an act of wisdom, not rejection. And once again, as you pointed out earlier, it means that there's work associated with each of those decisions, not this, not that.
Well,
You
it's
know,
to the decision maker in the mind, and when you say it, and to me, and it's like at that point I have a choice when I say not this, not that, with the decision maker on which way to view it, and then to listen to the right voice.
right. And as Vivekananda said, if there's a quarrel between the mind and the heart, go with the heart. If you find yourself debating with yourself between the heartfelt response and the rational response, Swami Vivekananda says, go with the heart.
Thank you.
Thank you, dear, for that. Anything more?
So when we, if we practice meditation, whatever kind of meditation that might be, or a technique that is slowly like progressing our heart chakra to open.
If indeed that's what you want, if you're practicing meditation in order to achieve something, object-centered meditation, nothing wrong with that. But the idea is for the heart center to be opened, which is not something that you have the feeling of it in a moment, but the experience of it actually opening and becoming the center from which you are operating is a matter of years. It's not a matter of, but meditation will invite, unless you are actively mentally doing something else, like I said, meditation to a purpose. Meditation will invite the Kundalini to rise. The metaphor is it's asleep. And when we call to it, it's like calling to someone who's asleep. When we call to it through our spiritual practice, it awakens and begins to stretch itself and do like a person awakening from sleep, and slowly rises, stands up, so to speak. Christ said, I stood up in the middle of the universe. By that he means he came fully to the top of the spiritual centers. So it's definitely, if our intention is to be those things that are represented by sattva as described by Sri Krishna in chapter 17, then the heart center will open. But there's so much, most people, particularly those people who were raised in very strict families, they were taught to be suspicious of their emotions. The people who raised them were suspicious of their emotions. And so they were taught certainly not to manifest their emotions. Boys don't cry. Girls aren't assertive. We're taught these things as tiny children. And so it becomes a prison for us. They become knots in our heart. This is that terrible membership that Don Juan Matus was describing to his apprentice, Carlos Castaneda. This terrible membership that we're given. I'm getting out of the habit of being sane. It's overrated. Oh, to once more be childlike, if only for a moment. I'm getting out of the habit of being sane. It's overrated. Oh, to once more be childlike, if only for a moment.
Who said that?
Me.
Oh, good.
That when I say me, I don't really mean me. I don't mean the personality. I mean, it came through me. So, it's after 9, if there are no more comments or questions. If there are, that's wonderful, but if not, then we can say good night. Brahmadas, you know, one of the things that singer-songwriters are sometimes asked about something that they sing, they're asked, is that a real song or did you write it? Is that a real song or did you write it? Well, just ask Willie Nelson. He said they're just out there.
Very funny.
He said they're just out there in the air. He said you just have to reach out and grab one. That's what I meant about it was me, Brahmadas.
Right.
It was in the air, and I was fortunate enough to reach out and grab it.
Okay, now I'm gonna
One
listen to Nelson's greatest hits tonight.
Yeah.
Apparently, one of Paul McCartney's songs, he'd heard it in a dream and thought he'd heard it before, and somebody else wrote it. And I think it was yesterday, and then it turned out nobody wrote it, so it was new.
Well, Paul McCartney certainly is a channel has been a channel for many, many, many wonderful songs.
Yeah, I agree. The stuff that they wrote in India when they were living with the Maharishi was just incredible. Really great stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, some great stuff. Anything else from anyone? All right. Oh, dearly beloved Lord, a flower at your feet for each one who comes to your open door. A flower at your feet for each one who stands by your open door and says, come to me, offering to break this world's chain that binds us down to ignorance, suffering, and death. A flower at your feet for each one who takes the path that you have struck through this, your jungle world. Om, Amen. Shanti, 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 peace, peace, peace be unto us and to all beings everywhere. So, can't say good night to you in the parking lot, but I'll say good night to you this way here. Jai Shri Guru Maharaj Ji Ki Jai, Durga, Durga, Durga. Go in Mother's loving and protective embrace. Jai Ma, Jai Ma, Jai Ma. The next opportunity for us to gather together will be on Saturday morning, when we'll study Swami Prabhavananda's book. Well, it wasn't actually his book. It was Edith Tipple or Nalini's book. She gathered together his talks from 1938 to 1976 and came up with the best from each of the times he'd given that talk and published it as the book Realizing God. So we study that on Saturday morning. It truly is like being at the Swami's knee. And then on Sunday morning, because the next day is Yom Kippur, we will hear from the Baal Shem Tov, a medieval Russian Jewish saint, Baal Shem Tov and the practice of love. So, a great good night to you. Until next time. Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
See you Saturday. Bye-bye.
Bye.